I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Our rat's ass about
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
Cast starts going, all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up? And welcome to Not Another CFB Pod. This is our weekend preview and pick show. We've got two games this slate. You know, we've obviously got the AFC Championship. We've got the NFC Championship. We're going to go pretty in depth here. We're going to get in the weeds maybe a little for our picks. We've got some props. We've got some sides. It's going to be an electric show. How we doing, Coda Capper Beast?
We're doing great. I just can't wait for it to be Sunday. It's kind of tough. I've gotten so used to all these Saturday playoff games that now we got to wait for Sunday, but it's going to be a great show, great weekend of football.
Absolutely. Now, I was going to ask you this because I was looking at the slate and couldn't remember. Did they used to play like the NFC on Saturday and the AFC on Sunday, or has it always been this way?
I can't recall. I mean, they may have done that in the past where, they did one each. I honestly, I kind of would prefer that. I think it would be cool to have like a Saturday night prime time and then a Sunday night prime time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get that like the whole idea is like, well, you save it up for Sunday. One team would get an extra day of rest potentially.
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
It gets
or
tricky.
if you could look at it like one team would get less rest,
Right.
The teams on the other side. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I will say that both these teams are located in pretty cold areas, so I guess it kind of makes sense they want to get one in early to maybe help save some warmth, if you will. But yes, it's going to be a really electric couple of games. These rosters, just chatting about these games at a wide angle, this might be the four best rosters in the NFL, if you know what I mean, like with depth. Mm-hmm. The lines are really strong. They're all got strong quarterbacks for the most part. I mean, I like what Purdy's done. He's the only one that's even a little bit of a question because the other three are amazing, I think, at least. I guess some people may think Jalen Hurts still needs to prove something. And, I get that angle, but I think he's a mature guy. He's shown he was really one of the favorites to win MVP this year before his injuries, so we got to remember that. He's had a really good year. I'm excited, man. I really am. I guess with all that said, you ready just to hop in?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely ready to hop in.
Okay, so the first game we're going to be talking about is the NFC Championship. It's the San Francisco 49ers flying across the country to the Philadelphia Eagles. In my research, I believe this is the farthest east that the 49ers have traveled this year. This is statistically the best defense the Eagles have played all year. Going to be really interesting game. So the line right now, Philadelphia minus 2.5, over under 46.5. We'll obviously talk about, the kind of gambling angle more in the picks portion of the show. But for now, just breaking down this game, you got to like what you've seen from what San Francisco's done. They've played really good defense, and they haven't made Purdy do too much. We know Purdy's a rookie. He's not a young guy, though. He played a lot of years in college, so he is a rookie, but it's really almost feels more like he's like his second year based on his age. But he is still younger than Stetson Bennett, which is pretty funny. That's just another one of those Stetson Bennett facts. Those are going to be coming out forever. But from the Eagles side, they're pretty darn healthy coming into this one. Defense is playing really well. They dominated the Giants in their last one, so much so that like I almost kind of forgot that game even happened. Felt like a bye or like it just didn't feel like we even had to see the Eagles' best. But that being said, they were great in that game, and up to that point, everybody was talking about how good the Giants were playing. The Giants could sneak up on them. There were a lot of people giving out some potential Giants upset picks. So I do want to say that Philly's playing some good ball. Not going to be easy to play in the Link as a rookie going to Philadelphia, one of the rowdiest crowds you're going to ever see. And this is a 2 p.m. game. So I guess locally that's East Coast time. So
yeah, it'd be 3
o'clock, 3 o'clock over there in Philadelphia. Those fans are going to be rowdy. What do you think?
Yeah. What's funny is we were kind of talking about the weather early on. I don't think the weather's going to be ridiculous, but I think the big difference will be just that Philly crowd. Like that's where the home field advantage comes in is they're going to be so loud on every single third down. And I'm just interested to see how this matchup goes just because Philly's offense looked so elite last week to the point where like Miles Sanders stopped getting carries because they were like, oh, like we'll put in the backups with Gainwell and Boston Scott. Like
Yeah.
they were pretty much sitting a lot of these starters. They didn't want to kind of overwork them because they knew they had the NFC Championship coming up. And then you have a 49ers team that like just defensively looked very, very solid last week, obviously. That was really the whole story of that game. They probably don't win that game if their defense wasn't so good against Dallas. But so you kind of got polar opposites. One team that's offense is coming off a 38-point performance. One team's defense just held the Cowboys to 12. So it's like very much polar opposites. Kind of a cool matchup, in my opinion, just because I think it could go either way.
Yeah, and this is one of those classic matchups. We see it in college a lot where it's like an elite offense with a kind of whatever good defense maybe, but not the lead part of their team versus a team that has a good offense but a really elite defense. So we kind of get that like strength versus strength matchup, and then quote unquote weakness versus weakness. Although I think both these teams are really well built on both sides of the ball. But when you think Eagles, you're probably thinking that offense, and when you think 49ers, you're probably thinking about that defense. So these matchups are always really fun. Who's going to win out? It's the playoffs. I've got actually 2 plays on this game, but like I said, we'll get into that in the picks portion. If I had to give out a prediction, I think the Philadelphia Eagles end up winning this game. They've just kind of shown that, especially at home, how tough they are. You mentioned their home record last time, but they're 7-2 at home is what I'm looking at on ESPN. At least sometimes those are a little off. Like maybe they didn't count the playoff game that they just won. But either way, I think that's probably accurate. 7-2 at home, great home crowd, especially when it's in the playoffs. And like I said, it's 3:00 over there. That don't matter. It's going to feel like a primetime game when that game turns on. Those fans are going to be on 10 right away.
Yeah, and spot on with kind of how you're mentioning so many premier players, like very good rosters on both sides, both defensively and offensively. I know people will be like, well, Brock Purdy's not that good. It's like they still have Christian McCaffrey. They still have Greg Kittle. They still have Deebo Samuel on that offense. They still have a lot of really star players on that offense. And then defensively, both teams have some studs. Even that Eagles defense, maybe it's not the San Fran defense, but we said like Fletcher Cox. They got Darius Slay at corner. Like they got a lot of dogs on that defense too. So like I wasn't necessarily trying to disrespect the Eagles D there. They're just maybe not as good as the 49ers, but who knows? Maybe they're the ones that show up on Sunday. So it'll be a good matchup. I think like if I had to make a prediction, I'm not going to end up having a bet on the spread or, money line. I wanted to take San Fran money line, but I just couldn't talk myself into it. As you said, Philly is a really tough place to play. Mm-hmm. And Purdy being a rookie quarterback makes me nervous. This is his first like road game in these playoffs.
Yep.
So how is he going to respond? Like, is the lights going to be too big? I know nothing has been thus far for him, but this could be it, man.
Yeah, from that angle, like I do want to mention that he's played in some big games in college. Obviously played Power 5 football. There's going to be some primetime matchups coming down to the wire. So he's played under pressure before, but it is a little different in the NFL playoffs when you're faced with what you are. And I love Philly's defensive line as well. I'll be really interested to see if the conversation about this game, like so far, I feel like we've talked more about the 49ers defense, the Eagles offense. Well, what if it ends up being that we end up talking the most about, well, the Eagles defense did this and this to the 49ers, or their offense did this and this to the Eagles. So we'll just say that's usually what happens in these. The side that we kind of overlook maybe a little bit ends up playing a bigger role than anyone would ever thought, but going to be a good one. It's a decently high over-under, so that tells me that it's going to be a fun game to watch, some good points, but also not just like an offense-only game. Otherwise, it'd be in like the 50s, but perfect spot there, high 40s. It's going to be fun. I can't wait for that one. All right, so let's talk AFC Championship now. We've got the Bengals. We know what their story's been this season. They were definitely the underdogs last week at Buffalo. You could see that in their energy. I felt like in the game, in the post-game rowdiness that ensued with like the Eli Apple stuff and all this other stuff, the extracurriculars, versus the Kansas City Chiefs who, they had a tough game. They were there at home and they kind of messed around with Jacksonville. They didn't exactly put Jacksonville away, but they got the job done. Biggest news was Patrick Mahomes got his ankle rolled up pretty nasty. I will say I've looked at the injury reports. They don't even have Patrick Mahomes on there. And of course, a lot of that can be gamesmanship, but I want to say just for because the people listening to this pod are like our people, and I want them to have the info that I have. I saw 2 different clips of Patrick Mahomes at practice running great. And it wasn't like a full dead sprint, but just kind of jogging to the huddle, doing stretches. Like it looked pretty normal for him. I'm sure it's not, 100% today, but maybe by the time we get to Sunday, it's got a chance to be pretty close to 100%. And I think this line kind of reflects it because it's bounced all around. Like as of recording, it's Kansas City -1.5. But even just today, Thursday that we're recording, there was a point today where the Bengals were favored. So this line's jumping all around. I would say if you think it's going to be a toss-up, find your side. Try to find it at plus money because there's no telling where this is going to be when the pod releases. But yes, so Patrick Mahomes going to play, we think, off the injury report, been practicing. So hopefully that's what we get, Burrow versus Mahomes. And it should be said, Mahomes, they have struggled with these Bengals because I believe Joe Burrow is 4-0.
I think it's 3-0. But
3-0. This was the 4th. They've won 3 straight, and all of those games have been in 2022, I think, because one was in the playoffs last year. They played twice this year. Is that right?
No, I think they played once this year. Obviously, playoffs last year,
In the
and then
playoffs.
maybe one in like last year's regular season.
Maybe
I'm
they
not
played
sure.
the last week of the season. Yeah, I don't know,
Something
but I
like
know
that,
that this is like the 4th time they see each other this year. In this calendar year, or
Right.
well, I guess now it's 23, but they saw each other 3 times in 22. I messed that whole point up. But you knew what I was saying. These teams are pretty familiar with each other. Obviously, both stacked rosters. I do want to say the tackle and the guard for the Cincinnati Bengals that were out last game still haven't been practicing. So we'll see. It's just Thursday. That can change, but I will say their offensive line did really well, but I heard an angle. They did really well in the snow against Buffalo, but I heard an angle about defensive lines in the snow that it's really hard for them to get low and get those takeoffs the way they want to and push, because eventually you're going to step in snow and slip a little bit. So your straight bull rushes aren't as strong. You don't have as much speed coming around the corner. So the offensive lines low key have an advantage in the snow. I didn't really know that, but it makes sense if you kind of think about it. You would think run blocking might be a little more neutral, but for pass blocking, you could see where slowing down, catching the guy, and then, he slipping a little, trying to push you, whatever. Maybe it makes it a little easier. I don't know. What I'm getting around to saying is I think Kansas City's got a little bit of an underrated defensive line. Maybe they can get through this kind of banged up Bengals offensive line that we saw play so well in Buffalo last week. I just think it's a little bit more of a split game, 50-50 here. Kansas City, like I said, 1-point favorites right now. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think Vegas did very well putting out this spread because it is a toss-up to most of us that are kind of trying to determine everything. And PG's right. We've been locked in trying to get these jogging videos of Mahomes and everything, trying to get any insight. I'm trying to find any interview that he's given to kind of hear what his quotes are. What has Andy Reid said about it? And as PG said, it looks a lot better than probably what it looked like last weekend when it happened. It looked like this injury was probably worse than maybe it was. It sounds like their, training staff and everything has been working on this stuff because he had a prior ankle injury. So they kind of had a process that they knew worked. It sounded like Andy Reid's quote that I want to say he said, he was like, yeah, this is a lot faster than we expected. It's been some miraculous things, something like that, he said. And even Mahomes was talking about it, and he seemed pretty confident. Like he was talking like a guy that was very confident that he was going to be going out there 100%. He said he was talking with Tom Brady this week. I mean, some of these quotes, I'm sure a lot of you guys heard, but I mean, he definitely was talking like a guy that's fully expecting to go into this game and just ball out. He's not expecting I'm going to see what I can do when I go out there. He's going to be guns a-blazing. I think we're going to get that premier, Mahomes Burrow matchup that we wanted. So I think it's going to be fun. I got 2 plays on this game, just like you said. So I'm excited to break those down. But PG's right. Pick a side, kind of figure out which quarterback, which defense, whatever you guys like. We'll try to sell you on what we got. But I mean, you're not going to have a wrong decision here, I feel like.
Yep. That's a great way to put it. When you've got a 1-point spread, anything in that lower, anything below 3, man, it could, especially in the NFL, could go either way. So we're just giving y'all kind of the way we're seeing it. And then hopefully it plays out well. It didn't for me last week, but hey, that happens sometimes in gambling.
Mhm.
Hopefully going to have better picks this week. The one thing I wanted to add on before we move into the pick section is I peeked ahead and looked at the potential Super Bowl matchups. All of them 1-point spreads.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's either way this breaks down, we're going to have a great Super Bowl too, which I'm super pumped. The Super Bowl show is going to be a lot of fun. We'll try to have a couple guests on because there's so many props.
Yeah.
And like last year, I think we were on the coin flip and the timing of the national anthem and all these things.
Oh, yeah.
So that stuff's
You do
really fun.
punting. I think I did that 2 Super Bowls ago. I took the over on punts, and like everybody else was like, "That's just stupid bet." Well, it was awesome when the punters were just letting it fly late in the game, and I was going nuts. Like,
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the picks. It's time. We don't necessarily have to do in the weeds, but I do have one prop that I kind of want to read off, and maybe that's the way we started off. But I kind of want to let you lead us off here. Take us wherever you want, man.
I got one that's very in the weeds.
Oh, good.
And I'm kind of shocked that I even really. I shouldn't say I'm shocked I found it, but I'm shocked I did it because it took me a little bit of a minute looking into the numbers and stuff and trying to figure out like game plan. And that's going to be taking backup running back Kenneth Gainwell over 11.5 rushing yards. I shouldn't say backup because they give him plenty of snaps, and that's the thing. So he's hit this in 3 of his last 4 games, and it's clear that the Eagles at this point in the season, at least, they really do like bringing him in kind of a change of pace role. Miles Sanders is not getting all these third down snaps. A lot of times it's either Gainwell or it's Boston Scott. A lot of times that's for passing reasons. But with that said, Gainwell has been getting kind of in that 5 carry range, and I expect that he'll probably get 5 carries in this game because you can't just have Miles Sanders getting pounded at the line of scrimmage every time by that San Fran defense. So I think, let's just say he gets 5 carries. We need 12 rushing yards. 1 6 or 7 yard rush gets us halfway there. It's just such a low number that I have to take the bait, and I have to take that over. There's just certain numbers that are just almost, I shouldn't say an auto bet, but I'm just like, it's so low, and he should get 5 carries. If he doesn't, I'll be shocked. But if you give me 5 carries, I think we can get 12 yards.
I like that, man. I like the props like that where you just need like one big play from your guy. And it's not even a huge play, a 13-yard run or whatever. It's that's nothing. So I like that. Our guy Gainwell, he's a good little player. So I'm going to go with the prop as well. I'm going Chris Jones. He's a defensive tackle for the Chiefs. I'm getting him to get a sack. Now, this can vary greatly based on what book you're getting it at, but it's going to be minus money, little juice on it. But I love his opportunity to go against a backup guard there for the Bengals, playing there in Kansas City. Jeez. But I love his ability to just bull rush guys. And as long as the conditions are nice and dry, he's going to have an opportunity to do that. I'm seeing a 3rd and long where they scheme him up where he can get a one-on-one. If you get Chris Jones in a one-on-one with anybody really, but especially a backup guard, I don't care how good he played last week. That's a different kind of guy. This is the kind of guy that Buffalo just didn't have last week. This whole pass rush in general, if there's like a Chiefs total number of sacks, I would probably take that over. I haven't seen that prop. I don't even know if a prop like that exists, but I like these guys to get some sacks. Now, Joe Burrow does a great job of getting that ball out of his hand, but this defensive lineman, they'll get after you a little bit, especially from the interior with Chris Jones. So we're going to take him to get a sack in this game. I think I locked it in minus 135 or minus 140. So it's not an amazing number, but it's fun to cheer for sacks. I've found out it's kind of an electric bet, and we just need one. So we need one good play to happen, and bam, we cashed it.
Yeah, you just need one of those breakdowns at some point.
And I will also say, so let's say the pocket collapses and Joe Burrow kind of tries to sneak out, and Chris turns around and makes a tackle for a 1-yard loss. That's a sack, even though it's not the traditional. He just runs back there and spears him before he gets the ball off. It still counts as a sack. So there's a lot of wiggle room in this, and we've been good with the sack props. We had the Micah Parsons one, so why not Chris Jones?
Yeah, you never know. You could get a coverage sack for all, you know what I mean? Like, it could be anything. Yeah. So 1 sack's not bad at all. I like that a lot. So I'll go to my first, I guess, like non-prop play, and I'm going to go to that first game, Eagles and 49ers. I'm going to take under 46.5 points. to no surprise to anybody that's listening to the podcast, I'm such a huge fan of that 49ers defense that I've been taking a lot of their unders, and I took it last week, obviously, with Dallas and them. And I'm taking the under again this week. Obviously, 49ers, to me, they got the best defense in the league, and it shows on those stats. Number 1 in points per game allowed. But the Eagles' defense, as we kind of mentioned, they're no pushover. I mean, they can ball out too. They're number 6 in points per game allowed. And both defenses last week looked really outstanding. That was the other thing about that Eagles game last week. Sure, they put up 38 points, but they held the Giants to 7 points.
Yeah,
like,
Giants didn't do anything.
Yeah, so I mean, you got 49ers doing their thing and the Eagles doing their thing. It's hard not to think that Jalen Hurts isn't going to be able to move the ball the same way that he moved the ball last week. And same thing with Brock Purdy, a rookie quarterback going up against an Eagles defense that really can bring it. So I don't think they're going to do the same things they've done so far in the playoffs. And 46.5 points, just it's kind of a lot of points to me when you factor in how good these defenses are. So hopefully they don't go like gung-ho crazy and score a ton of points. But I think the under is the play here. I think they're going to try to make it a little ugly, especially if you're San Fran. The only way you're going to keep this one close against Jalen Hurts and some of those speed guys in that offense is try to bog them down. You know, do exactly what you did against Dallas last week, which is get into a 19-12 type game, you know?
Yes, exactly. I'm on this same play, under 46.5 in the NFC Championship game. A couple things I have, because you hit on everything pretty well, but a couple things. So I watched the 49ers play extremely closely last week, and one thing I kind of forget about them is how slow they play. They are rarely going to get up and try to do a hurry-up offense. They're just really content with, let's be smart, get the right play in, we'll play great defense, punt the ball when we need to, whatever. They're not afraid to play that style of game. The only fear for me would be is if the Eagles somehow decided, okay, we're going to lose if we play slow and play with them, so let's just try to score as many points as we can, as fast as we can, and make them score with us. That's a bad formula for us, but I don't see that happening this late in the playoffs. Coaches tend to get a little more tight. They don't want to call anything too crazy, no trick plays. Let's just, call the, So I like this under to 46.5. I just wanted to give a stat out because we're pretty big stat guys. And you have to understand with these NFL bets, the volume, the number of bets, and even the amount is so much higher that it's tough to see these trends, but we still can see a pretty clear trend on this one. So the under that we're on is getting 47% of the votes, but of the bets, I should say, the under is getting 47% of the bets, but the under is getting 62% of the money. So a pretty big edge in money. So the bigger bettors, typically the sharper bettors will be on our side in this one on the under. And like B said, you watch the way that script for the Niners went last week, kind of leads you to an under in this one too. So I love it.
Yeah, really do. I'm going to start off the AFC Championship with a prop, just because that's kind of how we did it last time. And we'll get to the other play in a minute. I know PG's got a play on that one too. I'm going to go to Travis Kelce, over 77.5 receiving yards. I know to a lot of people out there, they're like, dude, that's so chalk. Like, if you're going to take a prop, you're taking Travis Kelce, probably one of the most popular props this entire weekend.
Yeah.
I get it. But my, counter to that is who shows up in the big moments? Travis Kelce shows up. Who did Mahomes look to, far and few between last week was Kelce. Like, when he got hurt and his ankle was hurting and he just needed to get that ball out of there quick because he didn't want to get hit anymore, he was throwing it to Kelce. He had 14 catches last week, 98 yards. And that 98 yards, like he was putting them all together. I think he stays hot this week. I think 77.5 yards sounds like a lot in theory. But the same way that we just kind of see him show up in these big moments, I would be shocked if you saw like a 30 or 40-yard receiving performance out of Travis Kelce. I do think he puts up a 100-yard type night. Like, that's just kind of what he does in these moments, it feels like. So I'm going to take over 77.5. I know it's kind of chalky, but we got to ride with the guy that seems to always come through.
I like that, honestly, man, because you're going to get the number of targets. This isn't like a Gronk situation where you just needed him to have those two explosive, massive plays. Kelce will get a bunch of just little 8-yard, 10-yard little stop routes just to pick up a first down. He's a heavy volume guy. So if he just breaks a tackle or two for you, all of a sudden you've got 140-yard play. You don't need a whole lot more from the rest of the game from him, and they're gonna target him because he's their best player. They're not gonna leave the playoffs without letting one of their biggest and best threats touch the football. So I love it. I'm going to a side here, going back to the NFC Championship. I'm taking Philly minus the 2.5. I don't want this at 3, though. I'm not touching this at 3. I've locked it in at 2.5. Wish I could have got it because I think when we read it off earlier this week on the pod, it was only like 1.5, but still, 2.5 doesn't scare me. If you're a little scared, you can go on the money line. It's minus 140, which isn't the best, but it saves you from like maybe a 2-point win, a 1-point win. My angle on this game is I just think Jalen Hurts is ready for this moment. At home, his team's more healthy. You got to look at you're facing a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs. And every veteran quarterback will tell you it's different in the playoffs on the road. They can handle a regular season game on the road, no big deal. But playing a good defense when their crowd's into it on the road with all the pressure in the world on you in the playoffs, that's when kind of the differences are made. And like you said, some of the big players is going to step up. Last week, the Cowboys dropped some interceptions against Brock Purdy. This week, the Eagles are not going to let any of those opportunities slip away, at least I think. So I'm going to Eagles at home, minus the 2.5. I think they could do this.
I like it, man. I do. I wanted to go San Fran, but I can see, where the Eagles really, they have that home field advantage. And that's why I had to stay away. So I like it. I also like 49ers, so neither one of them I'm really like confident enough. But I'll be rooting PG on, if nothing else. We gotta have him win that one for us.
Yes, I need a win. And let me also mention, because I mentioned the stats earlier, so we do have 69% of the bets on Philly spread, but 91% of the money. So the money is with those bets. So it's a large number of the public, but still, when there's all that money on your side, you got to feel pretty decent.
Well, that's big to get that under 3 points too.
Yes,
so that's the other
huge
thing is for anybody listening, like, if you're confident you want to take Eagles, do it now because by Sunday it might be 3, and
with all those people,
and you're getting the worst number at that point. So definitely,
earlier the better.
Yep. So we'll go to that other play. My last play I got, and that's gonna be Chiefs money line minus 115. Whether you want to do the -1, you can do that. That would be a minus 110. But I saw money line on DraftKings for minus 115. I want to do that. The other thing about this is that. So I love Chiefs money line, but the other thing about this was all week I said, I think I'm gonna go Bengals. Like, I think Mahomes is hurt, and then the more I looked into it, I'm like, dude, I don't think Mahomes is as hurt as they made it out to seem at the time, or just as bad as the injury looked. So as PG said, we started looking into these videos of him jogging, started looking into just kind of how he was walking off the podium in that one video, and just picture this: I could see Mahomes just being at practice, on Thursday or Friday this week. He just turns to his teammates and, in his little Kermit the Frog voice, just is like, hey, guys, I got him. They really think I was that hurt, but the ankle's fine, boys. We're tearing this bitch up. That's Mahomes for you this week. He probably is like, I fooled everybody, and we're going to sling this fucking ball this week. I think he tears it up this week. Number 1 offense in the NFL, people forget. Like, people forget, hey, guy lost Tyreek Hill, one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he still put up the number 1 offense in the NFL. And that defense for Kansas City is not bad either. They're number 15 in points per game. Not great, not bad, but they can get the job done. And as PG said, you're going to get a defense against, some backup offensive linemen. I got to ride with Mahomes. I don't think he's that hurt. I think they might have fooled everybody, and he's not on the injury report, so that's a good sign, man.
I love it because I'm on this same play, but I did take the -1 because I saw the money line at 120 when I took it, and at that point, I'm like, if I push a -1, like it sucks, but like it is what it is. I'll take that. It'd be pretty rare, so I went ahead and took the -1. But you can do it either way. It's probably a little safer, to be honest, if you're wagering large amounts of money responsibly, hopefully, to take the money line just because it's an extra 10 cents per dollar or whatever. So it's not going to end up being that big a deal for you if you're actually gambling a large wager on it. But do want to mention, I loved the Mahomes impression. That was good. I wouldn't even try that. I'm a notoriously bad impressions guy. Although I like doing them, but I'm bad at it.
Yeah.
I'll just say Kansas City at home, again, an incredible environment. Not to say that Buffalo isn't, but this is a little bit bigger stadium. Doesn't look like there's going to be snow in the forecast. I just don't think the Bengals are going to be able to run the ball the way they did in Buffalo. And that was really what opened up everything. If you remember and think back about that game, especially in the second half, when the Bills were trying to find a little life, Joe Mixon was just running it up the middle. It was 6, 7, 8 yards a pop. I remember putting out a tweet of like, what is Buffalo's game plan? Because they're like playing soft on the corners. So the receivers are just getting kind of free routes. And then on the running game, they can't stop the run either. So it's like they're not stopping anything. I don't think that's going to be the case with the Chiefs. Although the Chiefs don't have like the most amazing defense ever, I do like that defensive line. They can cover some guys. They're a little bit got some ball hawks on the back end, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm on the Chiefs too. This is their big revenge spot. All they're hearing about. Did you hear the Burrowhead comments? We're going to Burrowhead.
Yep.
Which to counter today, one of the defensive, I think it was a linebacker from the Chiefs. I don't even know if it was a starter, but he said something about nothing is special about the Bengals offense or whatever, which is a little out of context because it was phrased, what do you find impressive about the Bengals offense? To which he said nothing. He didn't outright. It's kind of a journalistic way to get a guy into talking into a headline. So I feel a little bad for him because that happens, but this is going to be a good one. I can't wait. We're definitely going to have some Twitter spaces around this one. But I'm going Chiefs too.
Yeah, no, PG had much more of the analytical outlook there. I just had the impression.
Speaking of analytical, let's get into the to the spread on this one because it's even probably the most important one we've had. So this side, we're fading the public. We've only got 31% of the bets with us on the Chiefs, but we've got 48% of the money. So nearly half the money, but only less than a third of the bet. So bam, that's a good sign when you're with the boys. And then for the money line, it's 34%. And then 44% of the bet. So we still have a pretty big edge on the money line too.
Yeah.
So bam. I'm super excited for this weekend, man. It's gonna be fun.
No, I'm excited. And I think when I hear those percentages, that just shows me that a lot of people are buying into this whole Mahomes ankle thing. And I'm not trying to say like he's not that hurt or he's faking or anything. I'm not saying that at all. I just think that maybe it's not going to play nearly the impact. I think early in the week, everybody started slamming Bengals.
Yes.
And like, I get it because of the whole Burrows 3-0 thing, but there's a lot of disrespect coming Mahomes' way right now. And that just feels like something that's just a bad recipe. Like that's a recipe for Mahomes to go off because he wants to prove everybody wrong. He's seen all this stuff, the Burrow head, that he's 0-3 against Joe Burrow, that he's seeing all these guys talking. Everybody thinks he can't play on this ankle. Like, it just bodes well for us, in my opinion. But we could be wrong. Like
always, just like we said, whenever you find these spreads, especially in the playoffs when it's close, we may have the wrong side of the bet, but we're not like thinking wrong or objectively wrong. You know what I mean? Like we're thinking along the right path. We just might not end up winning the bet, but I think we do. It's gonna be a really fun game though. I hope this becomes kind of a rivalry. It feels like this is the chance for it to be. And another reason I like the Chiefs is I think the Bengals put a lot of emotional stock into that game last week. Maybe it's a little bit of a letdown game just because so many emotions went into beating the Bills that, they wanted to have the home game and they felt like the Bills were kind of stealing from them and they wanted to do the neutral site thing and they were all pissed off. I wonder how they come out this game just because it's hard to do that 2 weeks in a row. And as we said, the Chiefs kind of stumbled through their game last week. It was good, not great, just like whatever. They were kind of looking forward to this game, I think, more than anything, the AFC Championship. So we'll see what the mindset's looking like coming out. But we're going to try to do some Twitter spaces this weekend. Stay tuned for those. They've been really fun. We've picked some winners in those, so that's always a great time. You have all of a sudden 30, 40 people in the space all hitting winners. Feels pretty good. Got tons of DMs about that. So we're going to keep that going. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Twitter spaces are a blast. And I can guarantee if the Chiefs are winning, I'm going to do another Mahomes. I'll do another Mahomes impression for the space, boys. So we got to hope for the Chiefs here.
It would be great is if that's how you we were like, hey, I kind of intro, like what's going on, everybody, like blah, blah, blah. Let's get to kind of what people are thinking, and then you're the first one to speak, and you do that impression. That would be electric.
Yeah. Maybe I can make a Mahomes burner account and join the space, and everybody will think I'm Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, or Jackson or somebody like that.
Yeah. There you go. And you'll be like, dude, we have Pat Mahomes.
Pat Mahomes' little brother in here. Who knows? It's gonna be fun though. Great weekend coming. Again, that's all on Sunday. 2 games on Sunday, so we'll have a good time. Thanks for listening. We'll be back Tuesday morning talking about the Super Bowl. That'll be crazy. All right, guys. Peace.
Peace out, guys.